And it's scary because Google can make one policy change and completely sync your website. And then that's what's happening right now with AI. A lot of people aren't going to websites anymore for information because Google is pulling it all to the front and you don't even go past that first little box to get your answer.
Hmm.
Whether or not that sort of traffic is what you would want to get on your website. Anyway, it's still a marker that your website is important. And when you look for tummy tuck in Seattle, there's 50 plastic surgeons. You want to be in the top 3. So Google looks at your website and says, who is the biggest expert on this? That's who we're putting in the top 3.
Hey, everybody, this is Caleb Steffen, your host of Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery, board certified plastic surgeon, with my honored guest, Dr. Aaron Gilson from Portland. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good to see you again.
It's great
been
to
a
see you.
minute.
Yes, it has. I love your sport coat. It's looking so good. What a great
Thank
vibe.
you.
Very you.
I like your dress too. It seems very you, very appropriate. You look like you just got out of the OR.
That's nice. You plugged that. We already talked about that. But yes, I did just get out of the OR. And yes, typically I have some kind of something that's slightly more professional than blue PJs, right? So anyway, but yes, a long day at the OR. And you were very gracious with your time as well at the end of the day to talk with me for a meeting. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, little baby Aaron Gilson, the whole works. What was it like in your childhood growing up? Did you always know that you wanted to be a famous plastic surgeon? How did you get from here to there?
Yeah, so we'll skip all the childhood stuff. But we'll start in college. How about that?
We're gonna skip all the childhood stuff.
Well, I mean,
I feel like
it's a lot.
I feel like I'll need to have you on again. There's no story like little baby Aaron, this is what he did as a child or something. You got nothing?
I mean, nothing
No
that
pressure.
really contributes to that. I always like taking things apart, and I thought I was gonna be an engineer my whole life. I was always gonna do engineering.
Okay.
And ended up going to a college that was kind of a backup college for me. Didn't know a whole lot about it. I applied as a computer engineer and got there, and I was like, okay, I get it. But I was doing all these honors courses, and one of the things I kept bringing in like computer engineers, and they would talk about how they were training their replacements, kind of like they were offshoring. It was a big offshoring movement in the early 2000s. And I was like, I don't know if I actually like computer engineering, and I don't want to end up training my replacement or not having a job when I get out of here. And it was kind of this like moment where I was like, well, what do I want to do? And so I switched to biomedical computing, which was kind of a made up major. And it was like computer science for medicine. And then I realized I kind of like the medicine aspect first and foremost. And I distinctly remember talking to a friend who wanted to go to med school in high school, and she was talking about being a neurosurgeon. And she said something like it would take 17 years from the time you graduated high school till the time you could be a neurosurgeon. And I remember
Something
this
that no one
conversation.
would ever do, right?
Yeah. I was like, that is
Obviously.
insane. Why would you ever do that? So here I am thinking about med school, and I was like, okay. I ended up transferring colleges to Vassar, liberal arts, did neuroscience, so completely different. And the more stuff I did with biology and medicine, the more I loved it. Did some research after college, thought I was gonna be the next Paul Farmer, went to a small DO school in rural East Tennessee to like get the real rural medicine feel, and definitely shaped my approach to medicine. But realized quickly I liked anatomy and physiology and surgery, and that engineering mindset of like fixing came back, and it really aligned with surgery and general surgery. And first and foremost, I didn't know anything about plastics. I had no idea. I'd seen like pop culture references to plastic surgeons, had no idea what they did. Very last rotation of med school, I went to Cambodia for 2 months, and we did cleft lip, cleft palate, hand, some syndactyly, some burn reconstruction. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I wish I could have gone into this.
Plastic
And
surgery, bread and butter, and you're already a matched general surgeon. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I got
What do you
my,
do with what do you do with that?
yeah, I was so excited. I was like, oh, that's too bad. Missed a boat. And then um, got into general surgery, realized that there was an opportunity for plastics. I actually got thrown into the plastic surgeon's OR because our chief resident at the time got in a little tiff with our plastic surgeon and was like, "I'm never working with her again." Looked at me and said, "You're going in there," and threw me in the room. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm going to get destroyed." So much fun. I loved it. Plastic surgeon Dr. Waits was phenomenal. She did a lot of breast recon, and she got to talk to her patients. She got to work with her patients and plan and treat them instead of, "Hey, you come in at 4 in the morning. Let's take your gallbladder out, and then I'll see you in the office in a couple weeks." Um, and I fell in love with it. And then I realized, hey, you can do plastic surgery out of general surgery. And so I did the whole match 4th year, ended up at
Super
Chattanooga. And
competitive.
yeah, well, it's it's a weird competition, right? Because it's less competitive on the face than integrated, but
Right.
there's a strong weed out, which is you have to survive 4 years of general surgery to even apply. Um,
20, which probably for those medical and non-medical probably are not aware that, last data I saw that 25% of general surgery residents do not finish, correct? 25% attrition, is that the number that
wow.
you recall? I don't know if you remember that one or
I've
not,
never
but
heard a stat, but that seems appropriate. I mean,
that was
it's
the stat as I knew it anyway.
wow. Yeah, I mean, it's as you know, it's not a walk in the park. It's
No.
brutal, but we remember it fondly forever. Um,
Yes, I cherish being a board certified general surgeon as my foundation for being a board certified plastic surgeon. I really do. I feel like that was for me, that was a rite of passage, similar
yeah,
to like people. I don't want to make comparisons that people would be, offended by. My dad is a veteran. I am not. But in terms of doing something that makes you feel like you've accomplished something in life, certainly for me, completing a full general surgery residency with the rigors that are there and being able to save people's lives in,
yeah.
dozens of different ways, right? I mean, it's kind of a big deal. For me, it was anyway.
You certainly coming out of it. It's kind of a gauntlet. You or a crucible, I guess.
Yeah,
Coming out of it,
crucible.
you can look anyone in the hospital in the eye and be like, "Yeah, I got this." Um, Maybe you get a little soft as you get through plastics on the
Maybe so.
ICU management, but I remember coming out of general surgery and my chief here, and it didn't matter who called me, what time they called me, I was okay. I could help in some way, or take or manage the patient, and it was a really really amazing feeling. And then you get into plastics, and you're like, okay, I thought I knew everything, and turns out I had no idea.
Yeah,
And so
when the
looking back,
general
and
surgery book is this big
yeah,
and the plastic surgery texts are wider than the screen.
yeah.
It's wild, isn't it? Hard to believe. Oh, I'm sure my general surgery mentors, I hope if you're looking at that, please don't. I mean, that's how they do it. So please don't judge me. Caleb Steffen, Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery, your board certified plastic surgeon, here with board certified plastic surgeon Aaron Gilson, practicing out of Portland?
Portland, Oregon. Yeah,
Portland,
yeah.
Oregon, sort of. Is that right? No, it practices in Portland.
Yeah, we live across the river over in Washington, and my office is in Portland. I operate out of a hospital in Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, but most of what I do is on the Portland side, and that's where my physical office is. So that's what I call home.
So are those really far away or close together or
Depends on traffic.
yeah.
There's two main bridges that connect the cities, and traffic's pretty bad because one of the bridges is like 100 years old, and they keep talking about redoing it and not redoing it. So um, it's 20 minutes away or it's an hour away, just depends. But
Okay.
they're you can see one from the other.
Okay, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
which should we hear more about? Should we hear about more about Portland? Should we hear more about Vancouver? Like if when I bring the family to come visit, what do I need to know ahead of time? Where do I need to plan to eat? What should I visit while I'm in the Portland, Vancouver area?
I would say Portland's probably the bigger draw. Vancouver's kind of a hidden little gem, I think. Vancouver's had kind of a bad rep, from what I've gathered from natives here. It's known as Vantucky or had more industrial. Having grown up in Tennessee and lived in on the border of Kentucky for a while, it's nothing like that. But
You think
um,
I would fit in better there than Portland?
maybe, probably. I certainly do. Uh, but no, it's this cool little city, like 270,000. It reminds me of like Chattanooga and Knoxville. Yeah, great access to things, and then you just drive across the river to Portland, and Portland's, I mean, phenomenal city. It's gotten some interesting press recently. It's been a national uh, in national headlines for a lot of different reasons, and it's a beautiful, vibrant city. I think it's has such a great culture. The food scene is phenomenal. A lot of huge uh, restaurants get their start here, and people open food trucks, and it turns into a brick and mortar, and then it just becomes an establishment. I mean, just some amazing creations. Um, just south is the Willamette Valley, where there's a lot of great wine. It's not Sonoma or the California wine, but it's really great for Pinots and beautiful. And then you head out into the gorge, and you get these amazing waterfalls and breathtaking views of the Columbia River. It's just an outdoor paradise. There's so much to do, and I love it. I think it's an amazing area.
That's so cool. So, in terms of what's the if someone's visiting Portland, what's the top 3 or top 5 things you need to hit while you're there? Besides
Depends on
your
what
besides your house.
depends on what you're into. Some landmarks are Powell's Bookstore. It's this huge bookstore that's pretty famous. Multnomah Falls is up in the gorge. It's this classic Portland, Oregon waterfall. It's kind of a two-tiered look with a bridge coming across. If you if you Google Portland, Oregon, it'll come up as one of the images. And hitting up some of the restaurants. Khan is a Haitian place that just won a James Beard Award. It opened a couple years ago. There's so many amazing restaurants. I would just explore Southeast, downtown, walk around, look for things. I mean, there's so many little quirky places, and there's a coffee ice cream place which has a hidden door, or hidden area that's you have to know the code for. I haven't been there, but all my friends keep talking about it. So we're kind
Like
of
a modern speakeasy kind of thing.
yeah, but for ice cream and coffee.
How fun.
Yeah,
Stacy and I, we love to hike, especially hiking waterfalls, right? You bring the kids along, and that's like the treat at the end. You go see the waterfall, and that's where you
yeah,
have lunch. So I'm sure you piqued your interest with that. And I've heard other people talk about how beautiful it is. So
yeah.
gonna have to put
It,
them on my destinations to go to.
it's like walking onto a movie set, in the way that New York City is breathtaking because you're like, oh my gosh, I've seen this before. It's the same for any outdoor movie where you see this gorgeous scenery and you're like, wow, that doesn't exist in real life. And then you go for a little hike and you're like, oh wow, this is it. This is that view that people die for. So
Well, I assumed you've hiked the Smokies and you've hiked locally now. So different, one superior than the other? Are you gonna get a
it's
fight between the Tennesseans and the and the Portlanders? What's the
it's rougher, more austere out here. The mountains bigger, hills are a little bit bigger, and the
Mhm.
Smokies, it's
Softer, right?
softer rocks. Rivers are a little softer. They're a little more established. It has its own sense of beauty, but here there's huge fir trees and pine trees, mostly firs. Didn't know the difference between a fir, cedar, and pine before. Very distinct, as I've learned since being here. And yeah, I think it's more breathtaking here, but there's always a little bit of nostalgia for me in the Smokies because I grew up right in the foothills, and we would mountain bike right out of my parents' house. So it was definitely nice going home and feeling that. But it's also really hot and muggy in the summer, and it doesn't get like that out here. So
Enjoying our conversation
yeah,
about training, about Portland. Tell us a little bit about after training, everybody has to kind of find their journey to their practice where they've settled now. So tell us a little bit about that journey, and let's talk a little bit about your practice.
yeah. So my journey was a little bumpy in that I was entering into my third year, so my final year of plastic surgery in COVID. So it was 2020 into 2021, and the resident the year before me had signed a contract the week before everything shut down, and then the group dissolved his contract because they hadn't signed it.
Mm.
And at so that was like, whoa, let's take a step back and figure things out, because this was the time for me to start applying for jobs and looking for jobs. And at the same time, all everyone was like, "Hey, aesthetics is dead. We can't do surgery. It's a dead market. It's never coming back." And so all of those jobs that were open disappeared.
Mm.
And so here I am going into my final year when I should be interviewing, and the market is gone for jobs. So I was interviewing some, didn't find anything I really connected with, and an opportunity to do an aesthetic fellowship opened up in Eugene with Kiya Movassaghi. He just finished his presidency of the Aesthetic Society, and
That's kind of a big deal. I don't know if everybody who's listening knows that.
yeah, it was a big deal for me. It was an awesome opportunity. He's a phenomenal mentor, and kind of fell into my lap, and took the opportunity, moved across the country, brought my girlfriend at the time out. She couldn't find a job there, so she came up to Vancouver, Washington, Portland, Oregon, and got a job up here, and we kind of fell in love with the area. So at the end of my training, I was able to find a job in Vancouver with a local plastic surgeon. Um, Fortunately, things didn't really work out, but I did find an opportunity to open my own practice just across the river in Portland, and jumped on it. And so that's kind of where I am now. I started my own practice, I guess, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and Gilson
That's such
Plastic
a
Surgery in Portland. And it's a journey. It's a tough journey, but it's been awesome so far.
That's what I was gonna say. It's a big leap of faith to open your own practice, but also that seems to be, to some extent, the pinnacle. Some of our most respected and most established colleagues in plastic surgery often are in either a very small group practice or, in fact, in solo practice. But that's not just something that happens by magic. I mean, there's big step outs to do that. So, tell us a little bit about the details of how you have to scratch it out a little bit while you're trying to figure out um, how this solo practice thing is even going to work. Or, I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
there were doubts along the way. What's that like?
So yeah, absolutely. I opened a practice with an asterisk. So I kind of lucked into someone who had an established practice and shared space with a plastic surgeon who retired like 2 months before COVID shut everything down. Um, and he had been solo ever since, and it was designed for a two surgeon practice. So I came in there. So they had an established setup, which was really nice. MA office manager, and I kind of rent them at first. The problem for me is I hadn't been in practice for 5 years. I hadn't been saving
Mm,
up with the plan to open my own practice, which,
right.
if anyone's thinking about it, I recommend that route.
You'd like to have
And
a little nest egg to make it happen first?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We had just bought a house in the area, and so we were kind of stuck in the area for better for worse, and we love it, so we're glad we stuck around. Um, so financially, it was tough because I didn't have a huge headway. So I basically loaned myself some money, kind of bare bones open my practice. I did all my still am doing all my own website, social media, hired a lawyer for some contract stuff, and did as much as I could on my own, and learned a ton in the process. So it was a lot of work, a lot of hours just building a website, building a brand, coming up with a logo, coming up with a name, calling practices, trying to get insurances to credential me. And it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of kind of working on that, getting hospital privileges, and kind of reestablishing a practice pattern in the area. But it's trickled at first, and it's really taking off now. So it's awesome.
That's great. What were your biggest resources as you're doing that? Because there's questions, the poor medical students and residents who are watching, they don't even, these things, whether they're interested in plastic surgery or something else, or just people out and about, we think of medicine and the reason we want to do it is to take care of patients, to do surgery, all of that. But all the things that you mentioned, there's not even a class on that in residency or school. So what resources did you lean on to even make that happen?
Yeah, I would say so. ChatGPT, right? AI was in
That's
its
a new era,
infancy.
isn't it? Yeah.
It's a new era. I didn't quite utilize that early on as much as I I probably could have, and it wasn't as robust quite as much as it is now, and I think it'll continue to do so. So I think people coming out will be able to bounce ideas and get good advice or guardrails or, a pathway. Obviously, don't follow everything it says. But for me, the big resources were YouTube, watching and reading, website design, search engine optimization, advertising. Uh, Making mistakes has been huge. I have worked with one advertiser that was pretty expensive, and they told me they were going to do great. They promised all of these things. And I kind of got, after working with them for a little bit, the sense that they'd never worked with a plastic surgeon before
Mm,
or in the aesthetic space because they kept fumbling over some little things and not really understanding. We weren't really seeing eye to eye, and I just wasn't getting any results like I
mm,
should. And so cutting cutting things off with them was really tough because I kept thinking we were going to go somewhere, and it just ended up not helping me. So I learned
mm,
my learned from that mistake. So now that I've kind of reached where my website, as much as I can do on the back end of my website, I use Squarespace to kind of run everything. And so I've hired a company. I went with a company that only does websites for plastic surgeons and aesthetic spaces because they're in that space. They know that. And when I started, the guy uh, called my office posing as a patient to kind of get a feel for how we work. And he was like, "Hey, we got to take everything from the very beginning of a patient experience all the way through the end and take that into consideration and wrap that into your website." And I was like, "That's exactly what I want." And so that type of experience is really important to me. And so but I couldn't afford that when I first started my practice. I
mm.
had to do it
Right.
myself. And so I've learned a lot from my own mistakes, reading, talking to other plastic surgeons about their experience. And insurance credentialing was another one. No idea how to do that. I filled out a lot of paperwork wrong. And the other thing is it takes 6 months sometimes or longer. I didn't get Cigna for 9 months because of a paperwork error. And I have patients that I could operate on and help with breast cancer, but I couldn't operate on them because Cigna never approved me. Finally, we found out what the error was and fixed it. And within a week, I had it. But that was a huge hit to me, was starting a new practice, but not having insurance credentialing and the backlog. I still to this day have no idea why it takes so long. Should be pretty cut and dry, but
Makes you wonder about some of those bottlenecks, what's really going on there, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And then carve outs. I haven't even gotten into that. That's the next project, but we'll see.
Yeah. So if for depending on when this airs, I hope people check out your website because it's absolutely beautiful. It has your fingerprint all over it, and I love it. It doesn't look like anyone else's website, and I think it's absolutely great. So I hope whoever
Thank
you
you.
use, I know I've told you this already, but I hope whoever you use really can take that and build on it rather than wiping that because it really is a beautiful site, and I think you've done a
Yeah.
fantastic job with that. A lot of people who might be interested in this or the details of search engine optimization, web design, and things like that are a total mystery for you. Was it as simple as Chat GPT and YouTube and looking at those kinds of things, or and you said you use Squarespace, so
Mhm.
um, what do you see as the biggest pitfalls in a world where if you don't have the right algorithm or search engine optimization that you just get totally passed over? What advice? I mean, it seems like you're doing it, I guess, is getting the best professional help you can is the
Yeah.
ultimate maybe. But like you said, not everyone can do that.
Yeah. I think if you can get professional help, do that. They're the ones that know the ins and outs. They devote the resources to paying attention to it. And it's scary because Google can make one policy change and completely sync your website. And then that's what's happening right now with AI. A lot of people aren't going to websites anymore for information because Google is pulling it all to the front and you don't even go past that first little box to get your answer.
Hmm.
Whether or not that sort of traffic is what you would want to get on your website. Anyway, it's still a marker that your website is important. And when you look for tummy tuck in Seattle, there's 50 plastic surgeons. You want to be in the top three. So Google looks at your website and says, who is the biggest expert on this? That's who we're putting in the top three. So the trick is to signal to Google that you are one of the top three experts through various uses of keywords. But up until the last couple of years, it hasn't had the intelligence to actually go through and say, oh, they are an expert. It goes off of keywords and word volume and the organization of your page. And that's stuff that the normal person doesn't know.
Hmm.
I was lucky enough before medical school as kind of a side gig. I was making websites. This was back in 2007. So it was a side business for me, and I was hand coding everything and hadn't done a website for, 15 years, 20 years. And so coming back into it was a big, huge learning curve. So I had a bit of a head start and I understand some of the nuts and bolts, but it's overwhelming even to me. And I've been spending the last 2 years working on it. I mean, I would spend an hour a day for the first year finding some sort of search engine optimization resource and then trying to enact a plan, a list of blog articles, a list of websites on my own website, pages on my own website to revamp and revise. Because at first I just wanted to get something up there and then I had to go back through the whole entire website and change it so the search engine would say, oh, that's a valuable property. We need to
Hmm.
bring that up in the rankings. But yeah,
That's cool. It
a
sounds
lot of research and
complicated.
time.
Yeah, and a lot of time for sure. We've delved a little bit into your practice, so tell us kind of what as I understand it, your practice is mostly aesthetic or cosmetically based. But tell us kind of what your practice is now, and then I'd love to hear about, kind of maybe a favorite procedure or sets of procedures, something that your patients would love to know a little bit more about.
Yeah. Yeah. So my practice is about 50% aesthetic right now. I do quite a bit of breast reconstruction in the cancer space. And, I really try to incorporate the aesthetic training that I did into all of that
Hmm.
surgery. One of the surgeons we trained with used to say, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, the, the, the best plastic surgery, the best reconstructive surgery is the one that is indistinguishable from aesthetic surgery. So if you're
Right.
doing a breast cancer surgery, it should look like they had a mastopexy.
Right.
And that's always my goal with every patient, to give them the
Absolutely.
best possible result. It's not always possible, but we can at least move in that direction for some of the patients. Um, but yeah, I think, as far as a lot of patients ask me, what is your favorite surgery to do? Eh, it's a
That's a
hard
tough
answer.
question for a plastic surgeon, right?
Yeah, I love operating. I mean, being in the operating room is kind of the fun area, the safe space, the best part of your day. And I love doing, abdominoplasties, mommy makeovers. It's just body transformation is so much fun. I love the details of those surgeries. And I never thought I would say that this is my favorite surgery, but it has nothing to do with the surgery itself, but breast reduction. And it's not that breast reduction is particularly challenging or intellectually stimulating. It is challenging and stimulating, but it's that smile on the patients. They're just so happy. And it's so hard to to when you have a patient who, rightfully so, maybe they don't like that some part of your aesthetic surgery went or how they healed. And it's a team process. We have to work through issues. Maybe we need to do a revision, or the expectations were not met. Maybe they weren't clearly defined. And it's a learning process for everyone. But breast reductions are just happy. And it's trans transformative for so many patients, and they get their quality of life improvement almost right away. And I love that surgery for that reason. And, as much fun as I have in the OR doing some of the more complex and technical things like facelifts or blephs, and every time I see one of my breast reduction patients, it's just they're happy, and they keep coming back. They're like, "Hey, I'm happy. I like coming back." And some of them, it's fun to hear. I don't know what it is about maybe it's a Portland thing, but and I haven't run the stats on this, but there is a significant amount of my breast reduction patients who kayak, and I don't know why, but it's probably 25 to 35%. Because I ask every patient, I ask them what they do for work and what they do for fun. And a lot of times when I ask for what they do for fun, they're like, "Why are you asking me this?" But I want to know what physical activity they do so that
Right.
we can guide their post-op course.
Hmm.
Also, I think it's really cool. Maybe they do something
Oh, it's fun.
really awesome and I wanna know more about it.
Yeah.
But so many kayak. And I had one patient, she was like, "I always wondered why my husband was so much better at kayaking, and it's because he can put his arms down. I have to kayak like this." And, yeah, it's just a weird phenomenon, probably a Portland thing, but, um, like I said, I asked all my patients that, and, like, 30% are kayakers for some reason.
Oh, that's fun. Kayaking's pretty popular in these neck of the woods. Maybe I'll have to do my own poll. But yeah, I mean, in breast reductions, I think my patients. It is not unusual to hear a plastic surgeon say that his breast reduction patients are the happiest patients. And I have two main reasons, and I think you kind of hit on them already. But just to kind of summarize of why I think that is, but I wonder if they would be the same two reasons that you think that breast reduction patients are so happy and smiling after their surgery.
What are your reasons?
Yeah, that's fair. You my 2 reasons is that they feel better, like you mentioned
Yeah.
already. They get their quality of life back, their neck, their shoulders don't hurt anymore. They can stand up straight. They can wear regular people clothes. They don't have to get
Mhm.
a specialty swimsuit or bra or even a shirt that doesn't fit properly anywhere else. And so they get all that quality of life back and they look better at the same time. And I think that's my take on why is a combination of both looking better, having an improved aesthetic appearance overall, which goes into how clothes fit and just their overall proportions and whatnot. But also they feel better as well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a huge part of it. I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because, male plastic surgery is lagging so far behind, and there's a bit of a stigma against men getting plastic
Mm,
surgery amongst men, and it's interesting to see because there are so many functional things that men could do similarly with gynecomastia and
mhm.
even abdominoplasties that would improve their outlook on life in a positive way, but it's not pursued often.
Mhm.
And men also aren't targeted as part of our plastic surgery literature and writing. I mean, if you
Right.
read a paper on abdominoplasty, probably doesn't mention anyone that's male in the paper.
Right.
And I talk to patients about that a lot. I mean, if you have a very strong ethnic background, it may behoove you to find someone that is very familiar with that ethnicity because there are certain characteristics that you may want to reproduce or keep. Whereas a lot of plastic surgery literature is based off the Caucasian figure and
Mm,
face. And so it's important to recognize those differences and discuss preservation or alteration of those ahead of time because it's classic in the rhinoplasty world where someone wants a Caucasian nose, but not in the way that the plastic surgeon wants, and it's you can't undo it. So,
or it's a really big deal, just as rhinoplasty is a very rewarding surgery to do,
yep,
and I really like doing it. But you certainly don't want to. It's a big deal to go through it, and totally worth it. But you don't want to be going through it twice, or heaven forbid,
yes,
3 times, right? Which we do hear about those things from time to time, right, at the big meetings.
absolutely,
And these are from the big shots as well. So
yeah.
something to think about. Yeah, it is interesting how our perceptions and how much of that does really come more. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. How much of that do you think comes from plastic surgeons, or how much of that is more a cultural, media, and entertainment issue in terms of those specifics of talking about beauty and who should have cosmetic plastic surgery compared to who should not and what those goals are. Do you think that's a push by our specialty or do you think that's more or other factors?
It's probably a combination. I think the driving force is probably our media consumption in all forms, and this has been present since the picture could be published, since the photograph could be distributed, and I think it'll be interesting to look back in 20 years from now and look back at this time period around the introduction of um, personal submission of photographs to the public. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and look and see how that changed the perception of society on male, female, and gender, any gender, beauty standards. Because never before have we, as a society, been able to control that. It's been a marketing, a newspaper, magazine, TV show has decided that for us. But now we are organically, we would like to think, organically producing that. So influencers are influencing our idea of what beauty standards are, and maybe that's a teenager who's looking at something on Instagram. And I was just talking to a patient about this yesterday. I asked her, "How do you look at yourself?" Because we were talking about a spot on her face. If I said, "Look at yourself," she pulled up her phone and looked at her selfie mode, and I was like, "The difference between that and a mirror is you have a wide angle lens on your phone." Yeah, and it changes your facial dynamics, and if
Mhm.
all day long you are looking at photos of beautiful people with selfie lenses, it's going to distort their face, and you are gonna start to train yourself into that. This is what beauty is. Fillers are the same way. Patients say, "I don't wanna look like I've had filler, I hate that look." And I'm like, "You don't like you don't like when people are overfilled."
You don't
You're
like bad filler,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you see someone on Instagram, you're like, "Oh, they have filler," it's because it's too much. Same with facelifts. In the '80s and '90s, it was a status symbol to have a windswept look. Yeah.
Yeah.
It said, "I have enough money to get a facelift."
Mhm.
And that was what plastic surgeons did because people wanted that. And now it's a much more natural aesthetic. And you kind of have this, people are associating the overdone cases on social media with what you should look like because the people getting, I would say, more nuanced plastic surgery, they don't know.
That's so true, and here in the Midwest in particular, people, for the most part, it's a balance of people who will
Mhm.
have kind of histrionic tendencies or want to be noticed, but then the vast majority of my patients and folks in the community would want to have, um, to look nice, to
Yeah,
look normal. They would feel like, now, of course, the way they look already is what is normal, right? But they want to be improved. They want to look refreshed. They want to look their best. And I don't know how your conversation goes with folks, but I encourage people. I'm like, I don't think looking like sometimes youth comes up, right? I'm like, I don't think specifically looking younger has any intrinsic value. But I think looking your best does. And so if your
yeah,
goal is to look your best, I can help you with that. And the goal would be for you to look nice and maybe even noticeably nice or nicer when you're done with whatever procedure you want to have done. And we let the patient direct it. But we don't want, if a stranger meets you for the first time, for them to be like, "Oh, they've had this done," or something. Is
yeah,
that, I mean, is that kind of how you think of it as well?
100%. Yeah. I want I want people to look when they see one of my patients afterwards, say, "Are you sleeping better? Have you been working out? Like, what gym do you go to?" I don't want them to
Mhm.
say what plastic surgeon you go to.
Right.
Um, and you and I had talked about this last week when we had some technical difficulties
That's
with,
true. We did, didn't we?
yeah, having trained in the South in Chattanooga. I remember one time one of our attendings said the average implant size we use is like 450 cc's. And in my practice, that's a bigger implant. I'm talking patients out of that sometimes. And it's just a very different uh, aesthetic in different places. And I'd
Mhm.
heard that in the South, people prefer body modifications, tummy tucks, breast lifts, breast augs, and in the North, more facial aesthetics, and it has to do with the amount of clothing that's worn. In the North, you're more covered up. In the South, you're less covered. So people tend to gravitate that. And there's also some ethnic differences too with the way the different areas were settled. You have a lot of strong Irish population in the South and Eastern European more in the North, I guess. But I always thought that was interesting. And then you come out here to Portland, you have this huge Scandinavian culture and kind of a little bit of mixing pot, but people really prefer a natural aesthetic. And having that conversation is kind of walking a tightrope because you want them to feel like they've enhanced themselves in whatever direction they want to go, but they don't want to look overdone. And finding that route may not be the way that they thought they were going to go coming into your office. Like, maybe they thought they were gonna do fat grafting, but they don't have enough fat, so now we're talking about implants, and now you're having a conversation about implant illness and trying to navigate that difficult topic with someone who's already on guard about it because it's Portland.
Yeah. Well, I think, and not every plastic surgeon is this way, but I would say for them, obviously, I have the chance to talk to plastic surgeons across the country, and even before I did this, I just do that on a regular basis. We talked, you and I did, even though it'd been years just for fun before
Mhm,
that, and that's part of the fun of the connection. But I think for the most part, most board certified plastic surgeons are using a hand of subtlety to get the results that people are looking for, and oftentimes, in my opinion, the overdone look and the exaggerated look is either sometimes patient driven, but is often probably not, from the artist who is the plastic surgeon.
yeah.
Thoughts on that? I don't.
Um, so I went to did you go to Baker Gordon? Did you ever get to
N-
go to that in
Not.
Miami?
No,
I
no.
went to that, I think my 2nd or 3rd year
Okay.
in plastics,
We did
and it
the
was really interesting to
Atlanta breast and oculoplastic one while we were there, which was a lot of fun as well. But I don't think I
Oh,
hit
yeah.
up the Baker Gordon.
Yeah, it was an interesting conference because it was very different from any kind. It wasn't as academic, it was a lot more like nuts and bolts, and the guys would literally heckle, not heckle, but they would interrupt the presenter and badger them on stage, like, "Why did you do it that way?" And it was interesting to see that, and you had some really strong personalities of plastic surgery that have been in the South Florida area for a long time, and were the people that kind of started some of that windswept look, and they still perform their surgery that way. So you get surgeons who prefer that look, and you have patients that gravitate to
Hmm.
those surgeons. So it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because the surgeons are saying, "Well, my patients really like this look,
Right.
and I'm doing the best thing." And I think it's important. We were already talking about reading and literature, and always going back and saying what's going on out there, going to these conferences and seeing what people are talking about and
Hmm.
doing, and talking to the people not on the stage, but the other people in the audience, and saying, "What are you doing?" Because the people on the stage are there to present their topic. They're hand selected, maybe they're industry sponsored, whatever. But getting a feel from your peers and finding out what they're actually doing, what works in their hands, and what the trends are for them, I think has been helpful to me as a new surgeon, figuring out like, oh, so you are doing deep plane or you're not doing deep plane, which is a bit of a hot topic now. I mean, everyone's Googling deep plane facelift. Every time someone comes in for a facelift, they ask me if I do deep plane. And I talk to them about, there was a study looking at deep plane versus non-deep plane and they couldn't tell the difference. But I have a friend who does almost exclusively face down in Sacramento, and he just started doing deep plane. He's put a lot of effort into learning it. And is it marketing or is it an improvement of a technique? And I was talking to a pastor the other day who's 30 years experience, and he said, honestly, I just do the facelift that I think looks the best. And in 10 years, people will be like, why would you ever do a deep plane? We do this instead. So it's kind of cyclical in that regard. And, um, I think the first and foremost is safety. So whatever the safest thing is that you can achieve the best result with is what I would do. But it has been interesting to talk to people about deep plane or subfascial or under the muscle
Hmm.
and what their preferences are and why they're in one camp or the other.
Yeah, but it does make a lot of sense and it's interesting. And I think just another shout out to our specialty. We're we have patients, not clients or customers, right?
I I correct that every chance I get. It makes me really mad when someone says, "Oh, you have a client." I say, "I have a patient. We're taking
Right.
care of it." Yeah.
And to some extent, our general surgery background drills that into us as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we are hammered over and over and over. Your responsibility is to the patient. Take care of
Yeah.
the patient,
Yeah.
and that speaks to me and is in my mind to this day. When you hear other people are like walking out or doing this or that and just letting whatever happen, you're like, our calling's a little bit higher than that, isn't it?
Yeah. I was so a little bit of a segue. we had some people at our house earlier to hang out with my wife. We just had twins, so they were coming to see the twins, and
You
they
must
are
be
medical.
exhausted.
A little tired, yeah. Um, but we've had great help, so I'm getting plenty of sleep, which has been really fortunate. But they were talking about one of them is a general surgeon. She works in the ICU quite often, and they were overseeing a patient who was a cardiology patient, and they called the cardiologist because it was a purely cardiology admission, and the cardiologist was like, "Why are you calling me after hours? It's not. I don't need to take care of this patient." And I would just laughed. I was like, "Please tell that cardiologist that you know a plastic surgeon who will come in after hours." Like, and I think to your point, that is our training in general surgery, that there is no after hours. There are patients. You have ownership of this. It doesn't matter what service they're on. Um, they're still your patient, and
Right.
you will be there for them.
Aaron, thanks for being on the program. I've
Yeah.
loved having you and catching up with you. How can patients in the Portland, Vancouver area, how can they, or farther, how can they come visit you and meet you and have a consultation, your social, all those sorts of things?
Yeah. Best ways, just go to our website, gilsonplasticsurgery.com. Uh, Goes right to my office. You can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. I don't have a TikTok because it's not my thing. Social
Me
media's
neither.
lagged behind recently, but yeah, website's the easiest way to get a hold of me, and certainly love to talk to any patients that have any questions.
Cool. Well, I want to give the final words to you. Thanks for being on our podcast, and any closing thoughts for the audience?
No, I'm excited to talk to you again. It's been a couple years, and as always, excellent. What the audience doesn't know is in between parts, we were talking about different surgical techniques, and is picking his brain about what he does, and I learned a lot just in this one little podcast taping. So thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to listening to some more episodes.
Well, you are the man. Thanks for joining us, and thanks everybody for listening. This is Caleb Steffen, Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery. We look forward to having you next time. Check us out on YouTube. It helps us to like and subscribe the podcast, and you can find us on social media as well. And we'll talk to you all next time.
Hey, thanks for watching. We've got a lot more videos just like that one. We hope you check them out. So don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We'd like for you to enjoy our content and share it with everybody you know. See you next time.